It started like any other evening walk with Milo, my collie. We took our usual path through the neighborhood, enjoying the cool evening air. Welcome to the Payback Vault, your ultimate hub for jaw-dropping revenge stories, epic karma, and satisfying justice. But just as we turned onto a quiet street, I noticed something in the distance. A small, trembling figure standing smack in the middle of the road. At first, I thought it was a stray, maybe lost or just looking for food. But as I got closer, I realized this dog was in serious trouble. Her coat was a disaster, matted into knots that clung to her skin, patchy with mange and covered in fleas. Her eyes told an even sadder story. One was sealed shut, encrusted with mucus, and the other looked so sunken it barely had life left in it. She hobbled instead of walked, and then I saw why. Her nails were so overgrown they curled under her paws, forcing her to shuffle painfully on the backs of them. This wasn't just neglect, this was cruelty. I knelt down slowly, trying not to startle her. She looked up at me, and there was something in her eyes, a mixture of fear and pleading. My heart sank, and at that moment, I knew I couldn't just walk away. I called my wife and told her to bring a blanket in the car. As I waited, trying to soothe this poor, quivering creature, a sound broke through the quiet street. The front door of a house directly across the street creaked open, and out stumbled an older man with a gruff, indifferent look. His clothes were wrinkled, and he had this irritated air about him, as if stepping outside was a chore. He looked straight at the dog and muttered, "Come on, Maggie. Get inside." Just like that. No urgency, no compassion. My blood boiled. I turned to him and asked, "Is this your dog?" He looked at me blankly, barely meeting my gaze, and said, "Yeah, she's sick. Won't eat, just mopes around all day." I couldn't believe it. Here was a man who was supposed to care for her, yet he sounded as if he were talking about a piece of furniture that needed repair. "Are you kidding me?" I shot back, my voice shaking with anger. "Look at her. She's in agony. There's no way I'm letting you take her back inside." He just shrugged, dismissing me as if I were the one being unreasonable. We were practically shouting at this point, the argument echoing down the street. The commotion caught the attention of a few neighbors who came outside to see what was happening. One woman whispered to me that he had another dog inside, and her eyes darkened as she said it. Just then, my wife pulled up. She took one look at the dog and immediately wrapped her in the blanket. The man tried to argue, but it was clear he had no fight left in him, no defense for the way he treated her. And so, without another word, we took her with us. In the car, my wife and I named her Luna. It felt fitting, giving her a new name like a small promise of the fresh start she deserved. That night, we bathed her gently, trying to wash away the filth and the pain of whatever life she'd endured. She was exhausted but ravenous, gobbling down the wet food we gave her like it was her last meal. I set up a little sleeping area in the garage with soft blankets and a warm light, and for the first time, Luna slept peacefully. The next morning, we took her to the local no-kill shelter. I knew they'd give her the medical attention she needed, and I was hopeful that maybe, just maybe, she could have a few good years left. But the truth was hard to hear. Luna was too far gone. The vet explained that she was old and had too many health issues from prolonged neglect. They decided the most humane thing to do was to put her down. And though it hurt, at least we knew she'd spent her last night in comfort and peace, surrounded by people who cared for her. I thought that might be the end, that I'd mourn and move on. But every time I thought of that man and his casual indifference, something inside me burned. I couldn't just let him get away with it. He'd done this to Luna, and who knew what he'd done to the other dogs still trapped in that house? No, there was a debt to settle. So I started planning. Every day, Milo and I took the same route on our walk. And every day, Milo had a favorite spot about 2 houses down from the man's property. And every day I'd scoop up Milo's little contributions and save them. When we got to the man's house, I'd lob the bag onto his roof. A quick toss, nothing flashy, just enough to make a statement. At first, he'd come out once a week with a ladder to clear them off, muttering under his breath as he went. But after a few weeks, I could tell he was worn down. He stopped bothering, and soon enough, the roof was peppered with little plastic bags, my silent reminder of Luna. But I wasn't done yet. One night, I printed out flyers detailing how I'd found Luna and describing exactly what kind of person lived in that house. I included the photos of Luna, showing her before and after her rescue. Then I dropped these flyers in every mailbox in the neighborhood. By the next day, it was the talk of the street. The neighbors shunned him, parents pulled their children closer when he walked by, and the local gossip network made sure everyone knew the truth. He tried to complain, but what could he say? He was the one who had left Luna to suffer, and now he was reaping what he'd sown. And just when I thought my revenge was complete, I got an idea for a little encore. A friend of mine had some pretty impressive print shop connections, and we managed to get a few custom signs made, complete with a photo of Luna and the message, "Justice for Luna, cruelty won't be forgotten." Cruelty won't be. And I made sure they ended up on his street corner, in the park, and even at the entrance to the local pet store. There wasn't a single place in the area where he could go without being reminded of what he'd done. After a year, my wife and I decided to move across town, but every so often I found myself running errands in that old neighborhood. And of course, I'd bring along a little gift bag to toss on his roof, just to let him know that while I might have moved, I hadn't forgotten him. Because Luna deserved more than just a night of comfort. She deserved justice. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's that sometimes justice comes in small, persistent acts. And every time I tossed another reminder, I felt just a bit more at peace. Because some wrongs deserve more than to be forgiven. They deserve to be remembered.